Welcome to another episode of Centurions, where we feature man-made things that have been in existence for 100 years or more. My name is Dimitri, and this week we beam the searchlight on the invention known as the telephone. The history of the telephone chronicles the development of the electrical telephone and includes a brief overview of its predecessors. The first telephone patent was granted to Alexander Graham Bell in 1869. Before the invention of electromagnetic telephones, mechanical acoustic devices existed for transmitting speech and music over a great distance. This distance was greater than that of normal direct speech. The earlier mechanical telephones were based on sound transmission through pipes or other physical medium. The acoustic tin can telephone, or lover's phone as it was called, has been known for centuries. It connects two diaphragms with a taut string or wire which transmits sound by mechanical vibrations from one end to the other along the wire and not by modulated electric current. The classic example is the children's toy made by connecting the buttons of two paper cups, metal cans, or plastic bottles with tautly held string. Some of the earliest known experiments were conducted by British physicist and polymath Robert Hooke from 1664 to 1685. An acoustic string phone made in 1667 has been attributed to him. An early version was also found in use by the Chimu in Peru. The gourd and stretched-height version resides in the Smithsonian Museum collection and dates back to around 7th century AD. For a few years in the late 1800s, acoustic telephones were marketed commercially as a competitor to the electric telephone. When the Bell telephone patents expired and many new telephone manufacturers began competing, acoustic telephone makers quickly went out of business. Their maximum range was very limited. An example of one of such company was the Potion Telephone Supply Company, created by Lemon Millet. In addition, speaking tubes have long been common, especially within buildings and aboard ships, and they are still in use today. The telephone emerged from the making and successive improvements of the electrical telegraph. In 1804, Spanish polymath and scientist Francisco Salvar Campillo constructed an electrochemical telegraph. The first working telegraph was built by the English inventor Francis Ronalds in 1816 and used static electricity. An electromagnetic telegraph was created by Baron Schilling in 1832. Carl Friedrich Gauss and Wilhelm Weber built another electromagnetic telegraph in 1833 in Göttingen. At the University of Göttingen, the two had been working together in the field of magnetism. They built the first telegraph to connect the observatory and the Institute of Physics, which was able to send 8 words per minute. The electrical telegraph was first commercialized by Sir William Fothergill Cooke and entered use on the Great Western Railway in England. It ran for 21 kilometers from Paddington Station to West Drayton and came into operation on the 9th of April in 1839. Another electrical telegraph was independently developed and patented in the United States in 1837 by Samuel Morse. His assistant, Alfred Vail, developed the Morse code, signaling alphabet with Morse. America's first telegraph was sent by Morse on the 6th of January 1838 across 3 kilometers of wiring. Credit for the invention of the electric telephone is frequently disputed, and new controversies over the issue have arisen from time to time. Antonio Meucci, Alexander Graham Bell, and Elisha Gray, amongst others, have all been credited with the telephone's invention. The early history of the telephone became and still remains a confusing cluster of claims and counterclaims, which were not clarified by the huge number of lawsuits filed in order to resolve the patent claims of the many individuals and commercial competitors. The Bell and Edison patents, however, were commercially decisive because they dominated telephone technology and were upheld by court decisions in the United States. Antonio Meucci, in 1854, constructed telephone-looking-like devices, and Philip Rice, in 1861, built the first telephone today called the Rice telephone. Alexander Graham Bell was awarded the first U.S. patent for the invention of the telephone in 1876, while Elisha Gray, in 1876, designed a telephone using a water microphone in Hyde Park, Illinois. Another name to remember in the history of the telephone is Tivada Puskas, who proposed the telephone switchboard exchange in 1876. Thomas Edison invented the carbon microphone, which produced a strong telephone signal. The master telephone patent was granted to Alexander Graham Bell with patent number 174465 on the 10th of March 1876. The modern telephone is the result of the work of many people. Alexander Graham Bell was, however, the first to patent the telephone as an apparatus for transmitting vocal or other sounds telegraphically. Bell has most often been credited as the inventor of the first practical telephone. Johann Philip Rice coined the term telephone. Models of it were sent abroad to London, Dublin, Tiflis, and other places. It became a subject for popular lectures and an article for scientific cabinets. Edison credited him as the first inventor of the telephone. The Italian-American inventor and businessman Antonio Meucci has been recognized by the U.S. House of Representatives for his contributory work on the telephone. The Canadian parliamentary motion on Alexander Graham Bell article reviews the controversial June 2002 United States House of Representatives resolution recognizing Meucci's contributions in the invention of the telephone, not for the invention of the telephone. The same resolution was not passed in the U.S. Senate, thus labeling the House resolution as political rhetoric. A consequent counter-motion was unanimously passed in Canada's parliament 10 days later, which declared Bell its inventor. The main users of the electrical telegraph were post offices, railway stations, governmental centers, ministries, stock exchanges, very few nationally distributed newspapers, the largest internationally important corporations, and wealthy individuals. Telegraph exchanges work mainly on a store and forward basis. Although telephone devices were in use before the invention of the telephone exchange. Their success and economical operation would have been impossible without the schema and structure of the contemporary telegraph systems. Prior to the invention of the telephone switchboard, pairs of telephones were connected directly with each other, which was primarily useful for connecting the home to the owner's business. They practically function as a primitive intercom. A telephone exchange provides telephone service for a small area, either manually by operators or automatically by machine switching equipment. It interconnects individual subscriber lines for calls made between them. This made it possible for subscribers to call each other at homes, businesses, or public spaces. These made telephones an available and comfortable communication tool for many purposes, and it gave the impetus for the creation of a new industrial sector. The telephone exchange was an idea of the Hungarian engineer Tivadar Puskás in 1876 while he was working for Thomas Edison on a telegraph exchange. The first commercial telephone exchange was opened in New Haven, Connecticut, with 21 subscribers on the 28th of January, 1878, in a storefront of the Boardman Building in New Haven, Connecticut. George W. Coy designed and built the world's first switchboard for commercial use. Coy was inspired by Alexander Graham Bell's lecture at the Skiff Opera House in New Haven on the 27th of April, 1877. In Bell's lecture, during which a three-way telephone connection with Hartford and Middletown, Connecticut, was demonstrated, he first discussed the idea of a telephone exchange for the conduct of business and trade. On the 3rd of November, 1877, Coy applied for and received a franchise from the Bell Telephone Company for the New Haven and Middlesex counties. The switchboard built by Coy was, according to one source, constructed of carriage bolts, handles from teapot lids, and bustle wire. According to the company records, all the furnishings of the office, including the switchboard, were worth less than $40. While the switchboard could connect as many as 64 customers, only 2 conversations could be handled simultaneously, and 6 connections had to be made for each call. The District Telephone Company of New Haven went into operation with only 21 subscribers who paid $1.50 per month. By the 21st of February 1878, however, when the first telephone directory was published by the company, 50 subscribers were listed. Most of these were businesses and listings such as physicians, the police, and post office. Only 11 residences were listed, 4 of which were for persons associated with the company. The New Haven District Telephone Company grew quickly and was reorganized several times in its first years. By 1880, the company had the right from the Bell Telephone Company to service all of Connecticut and western Massachusetts. As it expanded, the company was first renamed Connecticut Telephone and then Southern New England Telephone in 1882. The site of the first telephone exchange was granted a designation as a National Historic Landmark on the 23rd of April, 1965. However, it was withdrawn in 1973 in order to demolish the building and construct a parking garage. In the early 7th century AD, the Chimo culture of Peru invents a string telephone using gourds and stretched hide The original artifact, in this case, is in the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian Storage Facility in Suitland, Maryland. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Centurions. We will bring you another part of the history of telephone. My name is Dimitri. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.